Hey guys, and yes, you're reading the title and thumbnail correctly. This is redo of part 1 to What If Naruto turned into a female sniper. And the reason why I'm sort of redoing this for one is because I watched a 6-hour long video. Yes, I sat through, watched it all the way along. Well, listened to it and played another game. Anyway, of just the kind of story of Naruto, and whilst I've watched it a few times and do know the story, it was just refreshing to hear the story, especially from somebody else, instead of watching, it and seeing the story play through. Of someone Naruto, and of course when you do what ifs, you can lose track, or you can lose track of what canon events that are, as you could do so many what ifs that your view or memory even of the anime could be skewed or that. And whilst it really hasn't happened to me yet, as I remember it easily, but yeah, still hearing the story did reset my mind on this. And also pretty much the only reason why I did a part 2 was because I was hesitant on almost immediately redoing part 1, as I didn't like it, and straight up didn't like how part 1 kind of did, as I felt I skipped too much. So I wanted to go in a bit more detail, slow down the what if. I was within 2 or 3 more parts, I probably would have finished Naruto without going into Naruto, of course. And yeah, so I decided, do you know what, screw it, I'm just going to redo it. So here we are. Sorry for the insult rant, but hey-o, now it's over. Also, this isn't going to be that long, though. Hopefully part 2, if you guys of course want a part 2, will be longer. Not sure how long, but hopefully longer. And yeah, so as I said, let's get into this. So firstly, Naruto, or at least somewhat, Naruto would be, instead of being like at home or that, and what kind of one, however I started it off in part 1, Naruto instead would be already in the forest. Why? Well, he had no food at home. He ran out of money, and would be scouring through the forest, as what better place to find food than a forest. And yeah, so he'd be going through the forest when he'd for food, when he'd hear some noise, and kind of he somewhat vaguely knew this noise as something, like tree, or at least he knew that he could hear tree branches were suddenly moving and that, but they didn't exactly sound like the wind was causing them to move. And yeah, so, and after a bit of thinking about it, it'd throw course to the wind and would run towards the sound. Somewhat, and a minute later, it'd be whacked in the assembly side of the face. More specifically, it'd collide with something, and yeah, he would hear grumbling. And then just a child, something would explain a child. And Naruto would kind of groan and shake his head, and would open up his eyes to see someone with a sack. Why was he carrying a sack? But yeah, Naruto would kind of ask what was in the bag of the sack that he was carrying, to which the person would go, he'd feel bad, and he'd shrug about it was the person would think, what enough, is a child doing in the middle of the forest, especially at night of all things. Though he was already, nearing, getting out of Kuna, so, another one, another child for the Raikage, from Kuna isn't going too hard, and, someone, sure it attacked, Kuna's potential forces and shinobi. So why not? You'd figure. So he'd initially try to lure Naruto to, come close to. Naruto wouldn't, though he would, and especially as person seemed to avoid. Well, instead, though, he would offer Naruto to see what was inside the bag. So again, Naruto would stay stationary. Someone was not fully trusting the person, as after all, he hadn't exactly had the greatest experience, and that only somewhat the old man who was Toby had treated him nicely. So that and Tucci and Aime, so he was very, very at this point in time hesitant, and eventually the person would just decide, of course, hearing and knowing that he's probably going to be following, that he didn't have the time, he'd screw it, he'd try and attack Naruto, but it really wouldn't work, even though Naruto would think about running, as he didn't have to really fight. Sure, he's, part of the Shinobi Academy, but they hadn't started to teach him how to fight yet. And, so but as that running wasn't even an option either, as the person could probably easily catch up, so he'd get screwed, he'd just have to stand and fight or do his best. And his best was working for a bit. After all, the person was trying to fight one-handed, I was holding that sack that, of course, held, Jordan, in it, in that, due to the kind of somewhat impact, or at least impact of the person falling, and that, granted, he did manage to land, but the somewhat kind of sudden kind of landing in that, slightly somewhat hard, and that had jerked and the person kind of losing concentration and jerked out of the, had dispelled potentially the getting duties placed upon her to keep her asleep, and had that's also kind of woken her up from the impact as well, or the landing impact. And well, at least they'd started to wake her up. Eventually the person would, or at least the someone then would decide, screw it, it wasn't like she was awake, and if she was, it didn't really matter, he was going to get, Naruto anyway, and plus they were bearing down on him, you could somewhat kind of hear that they were close now, so he would drop the bag, to which it would hit the, ground with a thump, and a kind of cry would come out from the bag, to which Naruto would immediately recognise as Hinata, even though it was a muffled cry. Naruto would realise that this was a kidnapper, and he was probably trying to kidnap him as well, and that, well, if he was dropping the bag now, and he'd pick up that, noise will come in his way, and that he potentially would have to try and, do his best to hold off the person for as long as possible, to which he would try, though be futile, as the next second he knew, Kuno would be placed at his neck. Mainly the person would try and, kind of antagonise him for at least a bit, though Naruto was seeing that he could get to his, the person's wrist, would go, screw it, and would bite down. The person would yell and kind of would somewhat drop his schooner, and though would almost instinctively grab another one, and Naruto would bunch to somewhat grab it, and almost, to kind of strike simply, a taller person, would wind up striking Naruto's eyes, as Naruto would go from seeing to, well, not seeing, just black and pain, excruciating pain, as But that's as well what was said now. What was the useful, what was the utility of a blind person, child? That really wasn't, and so they could probably, give him, eyes, but could he really survive that journey with eyes bleeding? Maybe not, so he'd go screw it. He'd go over to the sap, and just before he could pick it up, he would hit the floor dead. And as Hayashi's, I think it's Hayashi, Hinata's father, he had killed the person, and he'd start to hit crying. Of course, not just from the back, but also from behind him. He'd turn around to realizing that this incident had gone from a kind of it was they would have to deal with land of lightning, but it'd be mainly held within his clan, and he could deal with the punishment to whomever had had kind of betrayed him and let the person in. Now, similarly, and could clearly see blood clear from the eyes, and that were almost no eyes. They knew Naruto was pretty much blind. He'd go over and he would decide that he'd knock his daughter out. And or at least he would get her out. He'd knock her out first and then get her out, as didn't really want to traumatize her, and especially seeing a dead body and boy bleeding from his eyes, not great, and would go over and would proceed to knock Naruto out. And not only that, he'd proceed to start wrapping up his Naruto's eyes to try and stop them from bleeding, or at least slow down the bleeding to potentially keep him survive, as he did know the Hokage should be a few seconds behind him at the very least. And at the very most, he'd be started heading to the hospital, as Hazen would potentially meet up with him. So and as he'd finished wrapping up Naruto's eyes, Hazen would arrive, and pretty much seeing the Hyuga had wrapping Naruto's eyes, or at least similarly bandages around a unconscious Naruto, would immediately demand what's going on. Similarly, and somewhat slightly confused, but also seeing there was blood on Naruto, and that he'd stand up. Of course, he'd just finished, and he'd immediately say that he exactly wasn't sure. He'd state that he'd after killing the person, he'd state that he'd turn around to see Naruto similarly crying blood from his eyes, and that he had really no eyes, and that he wasn't exactly sure why what was even really going on here, that he'd arrived, killed the person, knocked his daughter out, took her out the bag, knocked Naruto, and just finished bandaging up his eyes, and was going to take them both to the hospital to see if there was any damage, any damage done to his daughter, and though he was just somewhat nod, and though he would state that, of course, for the person to be able to get into their clan, somebody had, or clan compound, somebody from the Hyuga clan had to have betrayed them, and thus he would state that whoever that person was, he would or at least as Naruto, or at least as would probably beyond saving, that he could give that as before killing the person, could give Naruto the person's eyes. Hizen would, agree to that, as after all Naruto was that jerky, and it's, well, he didn't exactly want to see Naruto as a weapon, but that jerky blind, it would just cause, more, all the heads to, well, the two other village elders, minus Donzo, to kind of potentially back Donzo in the aspect of, we should, seal the Nine Tails inside of somebody else, as that was that, blind, and though you would, say, opposite the person had, the Pyukyugen, which, as not, I'm probably saying not all Hyugas would have the Pyukyugen either on, access to them, to which he'd simply say that, or at least say that if the person does have the Pyukyugen, then he'd simply train Naruto on how to use it, not, any jutsu or anything like that to be utilized, with the Pyukyugen, and just how to use it, and he could come up with his own jutsu from, there on. And as he would say that, at the very least, Naruto has, those rights to at least know how it, the eyes right to be able to truly utilize them. And though which would he would say that from there he would put a genjutsu over, not at least Naruto, and it kind of some his eyes to make them seem like normal, so if he maybe not, doesn't exactly remember, and pretty much, the village and that, wouldn't simply question why he suddenly had pale eyes or that. And it kind of sort of not agree. And of course from there, the part 1 adventure from that one would go the same, with Naruto being put into a medical induced coma, or just medical induced long time sleep, aka coma. And though the person would be found out, of course female, and without the Pyukyugen actually activated, though of course once they'd pop the eyes into Naruto, the fox would of course from there change the colours to his natural eye colour, that being a bright blue, and also actually figuring out what was wrong, or is why the jutsu simply didn't activate, or or at least how because the person couldn't activate it and would fix it, thus giving Naruto access to it, and also fixing or at least the slight or at least some of the kind of blind spot of it, thus Naruto being able to truly see 360 degrees around him if he would learn to activate them. Though of course from there, because he would kind of figure, or at least probably, or at least that the fox had come to the same mentality as, or at least realised as all fears and that, but at the very least it would lower potentially Naruto's point of dying, and that even if the fox wanted to be free, didn't want to be freed by having dying, and thus waiting how many years to reform. And and thus from there, so time would pass with it occasionally activating, mainly Naruto being able to similarly see kind of somewhat occasionally kind of behind him, or that, though for brief or at least for brief, not even for maybe at the most a second, though it'd be more so kind of like seeing that chakra outline, not them actually, just that chakra outline, and that which I do just presume that it was just his abilities. And somehow when at least more time would still pass, or at least from there time would still pass, and of course Naruto would when Naruto would for the second time, he'd still end up for a split second seeing fully around him in colour, and he'd just think, he'd just feel that he'd just maybe imagined something or whatever. Yeah, that he's maybe just daydreaming, having the ability to be able to see all around him, even though he wasn't sure how useful that would be, but yeah. And yeah, from there, of course, would be his first failure and him learning the chakra and juice. That would go like in canon, and kind of like how I did it in part 1, where Naruto would wind up activating the Bikugan, though, due to his kind of chakra and also the farm, and of course the fox. So he wouldn't get the veins around his eyes, and once his eyes would go pale, it wouldn't go as pale, more so going from a light blue to to just a much lighter blue, not really pale. But yeah, anyway, or at least as pale as Hugo Rasco. Anyway, from there, Naruto, or at least would still do the thousand cyclone, the thousand cyclones and that, and would beat Mizuki up, and when Iruka would call out his name, he would somewhat calm down. The Bikugan would deactivate, and he'd turn around smiling, saying that he kind of overdid it. And yeah, from there, the kind of events would happen. Naruto would wind up pretty much painting his face like a clown, teaching or at least being introduced and teaching Konohamaru his sexy jutsu, and also finding out what team he would be put on. That of course Team 7 with Sasuke and Sakura. And yeah, and with that, the instructions would also go the same, as well as the how they would pass. And yeah, though now being like shinobi and that, and yeah, after that first kind of mission and all, after being dismissed and that, Naruto would be kind of somewhat sitting at home thinking about what had you'd sort of realise that because it had been activated for at least a few seconds, if not a whole minute, beating Mizuki up, that you'd somewhat realise that it wasn't of his imagination or his abilities, it was something to do with his eyes. And yeah, he'd remember that split second, or at least on swing on his second failure, that he'd for a split second had seen all around him, and he'd thought he'd just been daydreaming, but once it was his eyes, and he could actually see all around him. And not only that, but it potentially also explain why he could occasionally, rarely see behind him, but just kind of that chakra or that. He really wasn't sure, but he presumed it was chakra and potentially that network or that. And yeah, so from there he decided that well, he wasn't exactly sure if the old man knew about his eyes. Maybe he did, maybe they didn't. And yeah, but he would decide that as he did feel at least partially betrayed by the old man, and so he would decide to not tell him, as well, yeah, it would just be surprise simply. And so from there, Naruto would, for pretty much the month, he would try and, activate his eyes, and whilst he would occasionally activate them, it would just be kind of maybe for a second or two, if not 3, and they kind of had to send well too much chakra into his eyes, and yeah, they would either activate and burn, which would cause them to stop, or they just wouldn't activate at all. So it was either not enough or too much, as after all the chakra, or at least the chakra network within the eyes, hadn't really developed all that much, as well, they'd never, had to need, or at least they'd never kind of had the need to develop, as the person that the eyes were originally in had never really hadn't, had the Byakugan, so had no, or at least the eyes hadn't really been developed. So, yeah. Anyway. And so, well, yeah, of course, well, at least Naruto was also not only getting annoyed kind of by somewhat, at least a bit by that, but also by kind of the missions they were, doing. And that after all, he wanted he kind of wanted a harder mission, maybe doing the harder mission, like, fighting against Mizuki would, he'd be able to activate his eyes, and with his eyes activated, he'd be able to remember how it, felt in that, and he could then activate them again, hopefully. And if not, well, then potentially Sensei would, Kakashi Sensei would then know, and he could then ask Kakashi for his help. He'd, no, and yeah, and or at the very least, better chakra control. And so, from there, of course, Naruto would end up complaining to Hiruzen, liking canon, about one hard mission, which, the canon events would play out up until the point of where, of course, Naruto always, would, and always, would end up, at least, stopping, before his fist would collide with Haku's face, or for a second time. And yeah, of course, they would talk for a few seconds up until the point where, of course, they would hear similarly 1,000 birds, and Haku would know he'd have to go and, or at least, risk, well, not just risk his life, but sacrifice himself. Of course, Iruka would tell, not Iruka, Haku would tell Naruto either that he had to go now or something, and Naruto would realise what Haku was saying or slash meaning, and no, because he would end up activating his eyes in that split, in that moment, and he would end up managing to at least shut down one point, realising that after, or at least remembering that kind of, but just instinctually remembering on, sort of Mizuki, when he'd pit Mizuki's, similarly, or at least those similarly blue, kind of dark blue points, that it similarly had lost not only feeling but also control, and the blue in the arms kind of disappeared, and yeah, closing the chakra point and that. And because Haku would slightly, cast, well, not really cast, would just switch to his other hand and would apologise to Naruto, and would proceed to disappear. Naruto would just, of course, look down and advent, and but yeah, from there, of course, he'd he'd end up convincing Zabazar like he did in canon. And yeah, though Kakashi would end up, of course, would sort of notice the way Haku had, or at least had been the way Haku's arm had, kind of somewhat similarly kind of looked like it was dead, like a Hyuga had hit a chakra point. And of course, knowing, or at least his, I told him that Naruto could have potentially activate somehow because of the fox, could end up, activating the dormant Byakugan in his head now. And well, yeah, because he, told him, and how he potentially got them in his head though not the full story, as he'd say even he himself didn't know, as they just fight Naruto with, with blood, simply, running out of his eyes. So, yeah. And, well, of course, I told him that Naruto didn't remember. And, yeah, so, after that, of course, the very night, or at least either a day or so later, Naruto would be around that graves trying to activate his Byakugan again, to which we would end up hearing, Kakashi's voice going, I figured you'd be here. Naruto would, Sensei. And yeah, the rest of the bridge had happened like in canon, just saying. And yeah, though Kakashi would go, all these Kakashi would go, I figured you'd be here. Naruto. And yeah, Naruto would just somewhat kind of not exactly sure kind of what to say or that, and yeah, Kakashi would then tell him that he knew about something with his eyes. Naruto would look kind of surprised, he'd go, how? To which he'd tell him, or at least that, kind of his, or at least someone had kind of told him and would tell him, and someone though he'd state that, or at least he'd kind of, kind of like a bit annoyed that, the old man had kind of, kept that secret, though he'd point out to Naruto that they didn't know why he was there. And that his eyes were, from the, he clan, to which he would try and argue that they weren't, because they were normal, and after, or at least a bit, and that, yeah, he would eventually wind up remembering, kind of why he was in the forest and what had happened, to which he would end up explaining to Kakashi, which would only cause Kakashi to feel more angry, a bit annoyed at Hiruzen, but mainly angry at himself, as he'd felt like he'd felt like he'd failed, when Hiruzen had told him that Naruto had the Byakugan in his head, and that, and yeah, now someone hearing what Naruto had gone through. Of course, at this point, Naruto was more like 4 or 5 years old, and thus Kakashi was true, into his 20s. At that point, I'm pretty sure, and thus Kakashi could have easily and he'd know that he could have adopted Naruto, and that Hiruzen would probably have let him. After all, he would have seen it as a way of potentially, at least, Kakashi to look after Naruto and to train his sensei's son as a way to potentially repay him for the good that, to repay his sensei for what he's done, for him, and that. And, yeah. And, so, yeah, though Kakashi would only somewhat, though Naruto would, from that, ask if he could happen to it, Kakashi would state that before Naruto would even ask, Kakashi would sort of just tell him that they could just tell, Hiruzen, and that Hiruzen could, from there get the, he can do something potentially happen to it, Naruto state that they didn't exactly want to tell the old man all that, and yeah. And after a bit of talking back and forth, Kakashi would somewhat kind of, or at least would somewhat understand enough, and would promise Naruto that he wouldn't, tell Hiruzen similarly, in private or like that, he had the Byakugan and that, and yeah. Or at least for now. And that he would try his best to help Naruto kind of control his eyes and that once they were back in Konoha. And yeah, so from there, about 2 or 3 weeks later, 3 if not 4 weeks later, some month, they would end up returning back to Konoha, of course, telling them, what had happened, on the bridge and that, getting the, a week off and obviously getting paid for an A-rank mission. And yeah, that's where I'm going to end this part here, guys. I was going to actually do this for longer, but I kind of have to do some other stuff, so sorry for this being short. Anyway, guys, if you do want part 2, do tell me down in the comments down below, of course, and part 2 will be up maybe Friday, maybe Wednesday. And also, you guys wondering how come you didn't upload, do What If last week? Well, I was going to do it Wednesday. The reason why Wednesday was because I recorded the What If, and uploaded it Friday. I figured, well, I'm not going to do it Monday as I did it Friday, so I was going to do it Wednesday. And that never happened because I kind of somewhat was, it was getting very, very late. It was not even late, it was pretty much, morning. I could see the sun rise. The sun had somewhat started to rise, so yeah. Anyway, hope you guys have a good day or night, whenever you watch this, and good bye.